the separatist leader and chief of the Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front, the JKLF. Recently, the Delhi High Court ordered Yasin Malik to respond to a plea seeking the death penalty in a terror funding case by the NIA. During the hearing, the Solicitor General, Tushar Mehta, compared Yasin Malik to Osama bin Laden, but the judges rejected the comparison. Malik was previously sentenced to life imprisonment for offences under the UAPA and the Indian Penal Code. How has he always gotten away with his terror crimes? What's behind this enigmatic life story of Yasin Malik? His lifetime behind the bars as well.
Well, Kabir, firstly, it took a lot of effort to convince people to speak about this crime, because we didn't only speak with the people who covered it or people from the police, but we also spoke to the victims. And we have worked on not only on this Yasin Malik documentary, but other documentaries on Kashmir about the victims of Yasin Malik, the victims of JKLF. So clearly, there's no doubt in my mind that Yasin Malik is a psychopath killer. He's a murderer. He's a terrorist. And he has to face gallows. Because his case is the rarest of rare. The judges may at this moment say, because it's a Hawala terror funding case, that he is not Osama bin Laden. Perhaps the judges themselves need to learn a little more and read up a little more about the terror crimes of Yasin Malik. Because not only is he accused of killing the minority Kashmiri Pandits and threatening them and perhaps raping them as well, he is accused of killing 4 Indian Air Force men, including squadron leader Ravi Khanna, in January 1990. And, apart from that, he's accused of kidnapping then Home Minister's daughter, Rubia Saeed, in exchange of what there were several other terrorists of JKLF who were released. So clearly, this is a case that has been running for last 32 to 33 years. Imagine any other country in the world where the armed forces have been gunned down by a terrorist, where minority has been gunned down by a terrorist, where he's involved in sparking riots, violence, bloodshed across the state, and yet he's given a free run. He's given a long rope, and he manipulates the system. He manipulates several governments in the system, be it the BJP government or the Congress UPA government or the Third Front government. And in the process, he becomes an asset of India's intelligence bureau. Can you imagine that? He gets money, he gets resources, he gets all the medical treatment, hotel stays, perhaps properties as well, from India's deep state. So the question at this moment is, it has taken 33 years for the Jammu Tada court, for the NIA, for the J&K police, and for the Delhi courts to, try him only in one case of terror Hawala killing. Mind you, there are 2 major cases of Tada, of Rubia Saeed kidnapping and IAF killing that are still pending in a special court of Jammu, and CBI is looking at those cases. So how long will it take for the Indian democracy, for the Indian judicial system, for the Indian investigative agencies, and finally for the Indian government to convict a terrorist, to set a precedent in Kashmir? Because this is directly linked with the conflict in Kashmir, where a terrorist has been given a long rope. He's been told that you can kill people, you can rape people, you can spark bloodshed, you can earn a lot of money and enjoy your life luxuriously, and no action will be taken against you. So this has to be treated as a fit case, especially after the abrogation of Article 370 on 5th August 2019. Yasin Malik needs to be convicted, he needs to be tried as per the laws of the land, and finally sent to the gallows to send a message that we will not tolerate terrorism, we will not tolerate separatism, and certainly, even if a crime has been committed 30 or 35 years ago, there is the Indian judiciary and the Indian system and Indian democracy that will try you fairly and finally convict you. So it's a matter of time, I suppose, if there is a fair judicial process that is applied here, that he will be sent to the gallows and perhaps hanged, just the way Afzal Guru, Maqbool Butt, or Ajmal Kasab were hanged.
And, before I move on to Asha Khosa, Aditya, very quickly, yesterday the hearing, there were some arguments that were made by the Solicitor General where he likened Yasin Malik with that of Osama bin Laden. That was shot down. Any other argument or any other observation that the court made yesterday that raised your eyebrow in particular? There were several, comparisons that were drawn yesterday.
See, firstly, I would say that the NIA and the Solicitor General need to be better prepared for arguments inside the court, be it the lower court, the High Court, or later the Supreme Court of India. Because this is a very sensitive case that we are talking about. We are talking about a terrorist who has got a free run, who's been involved directly in stone pelting in the valley, terrorism in the valley, and Hawala racketeering also receiving funds from Pakistan and perhaps in some stage from the Indian government as well. It's not just the investigation of this terrorist. India needs to highlight who were those moles in the Indian government or the Indian deep state or the intelligence bureau who was supporting and helping this terrorist all these years. Talking about yesterday, I can tell you, Kabir, that this is a terror hawala funding case. Although death penalty is in this, I personally don't feel that the government or the judiciary in this particular case will give him death penalty. Perhaps they will be life. But other two cases are very sensitive and important. These cases are of the killing of 4 Indian Air Force men in 1990, and the second is the Rubia Saeed kidnapping. In both these cases, he's been charged. There are charges being framed against him, and this is in the Jammu's Tada court, where CBI is looking at those cases. So I think the government is also firm after 2017 and 2019 that there is no scope or room for terrorism or separatism in the valley. They will not be given a long rope, and government certainly will not look the other way. So the courts need to be sensitive to the situation also to send out a strong message. Otherwise, it will be a vicious circle. Terrorism will yet again find roots in Kashmir, and perhaps there will be deadly attacks just like the one that has happened last night, where in Anantnag, a minority Hindu has been killed again for no fault of his. So till the time there is a strong message that is conveyed by the India's judiciary, there will be no action or no change in the overall situation. So that was our endeavor to highlight the reality of Yasin Malik, of how these cases have been pending for years together, and whatsoever there's been no action by the governments, the judiciary, or the investigative agencies.
Well, pertinent points being raised there. Asha Khosa, ma'am, you're somebody that's covered the valley as a reporter in some of the most turbulent of times. Innocent lives being claimed at the hands of these militants, victims of terrorism per se. How did Yasin Malik, and Aditya has been talking about this long rope, we're showcasing those visuals of Yasin Malik with the Prime Minister back then, Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh. As a key terrorist figure and the leader of the JKLF, how did he manage to get himself this long rope of sorts? How did he so nicely play the system?
Well, I don't know whether he played the system or system was playing to him. I think when I was reporting from Kashmir, first of all, we saw Yasin Malik become a pioneer, militant or terrorist, whatever you call him. So he was in the forefront of Rubia Said kidnapping, and the turnaround in Kashmir started from there. Then killing of Indian Air Force officers, and of course the Kashmiri Pandits and others. So that is history. Then suddenly we find that he is released from the jail and he claims, I am going to follow Gandhi and I'm going to sit on a dharna, I'm going to sit on a hunger strike, not eat anything. So we were wondering, I mean, by we, I mean the common Kashmiri living in Kashmir. He was wondering that if he can commit so many crimes and then get away from it and try to become a, Mahatma Gandhi, so what are we doing? I mean, we should be with whom we should be siding. And the treatment of people like Yasin Malik, the long rope he had been given by the government, it sent a lot of confusing signals to the common people. And I can say, as a witness, as a reporter who was there on the ground zero, that these kind of confusing signals that made people wonder whether they should be on the side of terrorists or they should be on the side of government. And people like me who were reporting, we would often wonder, I mean, is government of India interested in keeping Kashmir, or they want to gift it away to some other country? So it was a pretty confusing situation, because Yasin Malik was given a long ropeway. A lot of people, a lot of youth, they felt inspired that this is the right way to go. And I will blame government of India more than Yasin Malik. He did what he wanted to do, what he has been asked to do, he's been trained to do. But government of India at that time was, I think they were not firm in, they were confused, or probably, I don't know what was wrong with them. It made people wonder, some of my friends who were Kashmiris, who are, even I'm a Kashmiri, they would say ki karna kya hai government of India ka, humko bata do. If they don't want to keep Kashmir, let us know. Because after that we saw Yasin Malik not only being treated well by the government, even by the intelligentsia in Delhi. He was invited to seminars, peace seminars, meetings, and others will be looking at him and wondering what government of India is doing with people who are self-confessed terrorists. You know, Yasin Malik is a person who has gone on record on international television channels saying that, yes, I've killed people, so what? In a big situation like what is happening in Kashmir, movement, he used the word movement, such small things takes place. And by small thing, he meant the killing of Indian Air Force personnel. So I will blame Government of India for sending wrong signals to the people of Kashmir by its treatment of Yasin Malik, and somebody should be made accountable for that kind of creating that kind of confusion.
Do you think, I mean, we've got the examples of Maqbul Butt, Afzal Guru. Do you think capital punishment against Yasin Malik is going to set the right kind of precedent? If right is not the right word to use here, important maybe, an important precedent for other cases to come up?
Well, Kabir, I'll be very honest and candid today. You know, I'm completely against capital punishment. I'm against hanging. And perhaps democracies need to learn to avoid hanging and have a life imprisonment or other, punishments. But in such rarest of rare cases, until the Indian democracy or different democracies in the world have this punishment on the, CRPC, on the criminal procedures and the, laws of the land, the constitution mandates that if it is the rarest of the rare case, if it is such barbaric case, then certainly there needs to be a capital punishment. In case of Yasin Malik, I personally believe that he's a psychopath killer, he's a self-confessed killer, and he has taken the entire system for a ride. I'll also add here that Yasin Malik has confessed to his crimes. On BBC, while speaking on Hard Talk with Tim Sebastian, he has confessed that he has killed the IAF persons. He has confessed that he has kidnapped Rubia Saeed. Then what is stopping the Indian law, the Indian courts, the Indian investigative agencies to charge him, to convict him, and send him to the gallows? So certainly, it will send a right message. You know, I blame the Indian government and the Indian system because for more than 30 years, they shaped Kashmir in such a way that they gave these terrorists and separatists a long rope. They gave them money, resources, so that they thought that giving them money and resources will solve the problem. That was completely a wrong way to do things. They also let this ecosystem of terrorism and separatism prevail in the valley. And in the process, we saw thousands of innocent civilians who chose the Indian flag, who chose the Indian democracy, who chose the Indian constitution, suffering and getting killed. Even today, every other day, we see civilians being killed and facing the brunt of the same terrorism and separatism that Yasin Malik and the ilk really represent. So until the Indian law acts on him and people like him with iron fist, there will be no change in the valley. Yes, abrogation of Article 370 was an important step, but terrorism is not linked to 370. Terrorism is linked with what the Indian intelligence, the Indian security forces, and finally the Indian government do with the terror groups and the terror machinery, and of course Pakistan. They have sent out a strong message ever since 2019. But until Yasin Malik is convicted, because he is seen as the face of terrorism in the Kashmir Valley. So until there is action against him, a strong message at that, there will be no change. And if there is a conviction, if there is finally capital punishment and hanging of Yasin Malik, it will send out a very strong precedent, not just in Kashmir, but across the country, and perhaps a message to Pakistan as well.